All right, if you've ever looked at the standard education system and thought, how can we actually better prepare young minds for a world that's just changing so incredibly fast? Well, you are in the exact right place. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to break down the core concepts of creativity and innovation, and we'll look at how we can profoundly rewire the learning experience to really benefit the next generation. So, let's start with a big question. What happens when students stop just absorbing information and start building the future? I mean, for generations, traditional education has treated students, well, kind of like USB drives, right? They're expected to download static facts, store them temporarily, and then just upload them onto a standardized test. But to truly thrive in today's insanely complex world, we need a massive shift. We urgently need to transform students from being these passive receivers of data into active, fully engaged creators of new solutions. And to make that crucial shift, we're relying on a really powerful concept. It's called the architect's mind. Basically, this is a conceptual framework for school students focused on actively cultivating both raw creativity and practical innovation. Think of a master architect for a second. They don't just daydream about beautiful buildings. They actually design those buildings with mathematical precision and structural integrity so they can be built, occupied, and, stand the test of time. This is exactly the kind of highly effective dual mindset we want to instill in students during their formative cognitive development. So, here is our blueprint for today's explainer. First, unpacking the architect's mind. Second, defining student creativity. Third, from creativity to innovation. And finally, number 4, the blueprint for schools. Let's dive right into section 1, unpacking the architect's mind, laying the foundation. Now, the traditional student mindset is highly linear. It relies really heavily on repetition and compliance. For instance, a traditional mindset might ask, okay, what exact date did the war start for Friday's history test? But the architect's mindset, that is multidimensional. It asks, wait, what caused the conflict in the first place? And how can we design a geopolitical system to actually prevent it from happening again? It's the stark difference between merely memorizing a map that someone else drew and learning how to navigate uncharted territory entirely on your own. By shifting to this architectural approach, students develop the vital cognitive flexibility they need to tackle complex, real-world issues. Moving along to section 2, defining student creativity, the drafting phase. So, before any practical innovation can ever happen, we absolutely must foster deep, messy, abstract creativity. Creativity is the crucial first step here. It's the raw ideation and visualization of unique solutions by students. In this initial drafting phase, there are literally 0 wrong answers. None. It is strictly about brainstorming, sketching out wild, totally unconstrained ideas, and looking at old, stubborn problems through entirely new lenses. It's just like an architect sketching chaotic initial concepts on a napkin at a coffee shop. Students desperately need the psychological safety and the dedicated space to let their imaginations run wild, completely free from the immediate stifling pressure of grades or, physical feasibility. Which brings us to section 3, from creativity to innovation, the construction phase. Okay, here is the absolute core difference that we need to grasp. Creativity is fundamentally about thinking up new things. Innovation, on the other hand, is about doing new things. I mean, you can have a classroom of highly creative students inventing flying cars in their heads all day long, but if they never pick up a wrench, they aren't actually innovating. Innovation requires taking that raw, creative sketch and applying hard, critical thinking, team collaboration, and a whole lot of resilience to physically bring it into the real world. So how does that progression work? Well, step 1, ideate the vision. This is that pure, unbridled creativity we just talked about, the brainstorming phase. Then we hit step 2, draft the plan. This is the critical bridge. It's where students start applying rigorous logic to their wild ideas. They map out the sequential steps, identify the materials and resources they'll need, and actively forecast potential roadblocks. And then finally, step 3, execute the innovation. This is the hands-on, roll-up-your-sleeves phase. It's the actual building, the testing, the inevitable failing, because that will happen, and the subsequent refining. Walking students through these 3 distinct steps teaches them that a great idea is truly only the beginning, and that real, impactful success comes from the grit and determination to see a project all the way through to completion. And finally, we arrive at section 4, the blueprint for schools, the final structure. So how do schools actually pull this off? First, foster deep creativity. This means intentionally carving out time in the daily curriculum for open-ended exploration and honestly protecting that time fiercely. Second, bridge the gap to practical application. We absolutely cannot let brilliant ideas just die on the classroom whiteboard. We need to provide students with the structural tools, modern technology, and expert mentorship required to build working prototypes or launch actual community projects. Third, and perhaps most importantly, encourage student-led innovation. When students take genuine ownership of their projects from ideation all the way to execution, their academic engagement just skyrockets. They stop asking, hey, is this going to be on the test? And they start asking, how can I make this actually work? And that right there is the true power of this framework. So, I want to leave you with this question to ponder. How will you lay the foundation for the architect's mind in your local school or home? Whether you're an educator drafting lesson plans, a parent guiding homework, or simply an engaged citizen who's passionate about the future of learning, you have a critical role to play in this educational shift. The blueprint for cultivating student innovation is right here in front of us. It's time to stop just passively absorbing information about what's outdated in education and start actively building a future where every single student is an architect of their own success. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep building, and I'll see you next time.